Welcome to The Independent Agent, a Pacific Palisades home rebuilding after the January 2025 fire. The seller's listing at $4.2 million. The buyer's insurance quote $24,000 annually through the FAIR Plan plus difference in conditions wraparound. The previous owner had been paying $5,200 with State Farm before the non-renewal. That $18,800 annual increase just took $265,000 off the buyer's purchasing power.
So, this isn't just some crazy isolated incident. We're looking at a massive structural shift happening in the California real estate market right now. The private carrier market has effectively withdrawn from high-risk brush fire zones, and the state's insurer of last resort has suddenly become the de facto primary carrier. It's literally a fundamental reshaping of property values. The absolute crucial takeaway here is that this $265,000 hit to purchasing power is not a fluke. It's the new math dictating the entire market. Think about it. When a buyer's lender looks at a property, they're underwriting against the total annual carrying cost. At current 30-year fixed rates, an $18,800 annual jump in insurance fundamentally alters the debt-to-income reality. It depresses the buyer's purchasing power by roughly $265,000, meaning sellers listing at standard neighborhood comparables might be in for a really harsh awakening if those comps haven't adjusted for this new insurance environment. Section 1. The new FAIR Plan reality. Let's move straight into the underlying mechanism causing all this and see how it builds across California's high-risk zones, from Malibu to Altadena and out into places like Sunset Mesa.
Look, the FAIR Plan is strictly an insurer of last resort, and we gotta be clear about what that actually means. It provides actual cash value only. No personal liability, no additional living expenses, no replacement cost valuation. Because of these massive coverage gaps, buyers are forced to assemble layered policies. They specifically have to pay a premium for a difference in conditions wraparound just to secure a mortgage. These surplus lines wraparound policies cost multiples of the legacy carrier premium, and frankly, depending on the property, they might not even be available at all.
And this chart brilliantly illustrates the trend. After an absolutely wild 85% growth in FAIR Plan policies from September 2024 to September 2025 alone, it now holds roughly 16% of the Pacific Palisades market. It is rapidly catching up to State Farm, which sits at about 20%. When you zoom out and look at California statewide, FAIR Plan growth surged 164% between September 2019 and June 2024. What was meant to be a temporary safety net is now literally holding up the foundation of the market.
Section 2. The $3 million cap problem.
By law, the California FAIR Plan strictly caps residential dwelling coverage at $3 million. It doesn't write above that ceiling. Period. Hard stop. This creates a massive problem. Say you're buying a Topanga home with a replacement cost estimated at $4,800,000. That hard $3 million cap forces you to make a terrible choice. You either carry a massive $1,800,000 in uninsured replacement cost exposure, or you find a very expensive surplus lines carrier to cover the gap. And the surplus lines market for wraparound coverage above that ceiling has thinned out dramatically, often coming with really intense underwriting requirements. Because of this, properties trading above the cap often sell at a meaningful discount to replacement value, simply because the financing pool narrows down strictly to cash buyers or those willing to carry that huge uninsured risk.
Section 3. The pre-2025 versus post-2025 comp problem.
When you pull a comparative market analysis today, you're dealing with an environment that's completely fractured by this specific timeline. Pre-2023, legacy carriers were riding normally. But starting in March 2024, major carriers like State Farm, Allstate, Farmers, and Travelers stopped writing new business or rapidly accelerated non-renewals in high-risk zones. Then the January 2025 Palisades and Eaton fires hit, completely locking in the FAIR Plan as the default. Now we're looking ahead to May 2026 for the state enforcement framework implementation. If your data straddles these dates, your comps are fundamentally flawed. So what does this actually look like in practice? It means the exact same square footage with the exact same view trades at fundamentally different prices depending entirely on whether the comp is based on a legacy $4,500 premium or a modern $28,000 FAIR Plan plus wraparound reality. If a seller lists at a pre-pullout comp value without adjusting for this new insurance context, they're producing a listing that the buyer's lender is going to underwrite entirely differently than the listing agent priced it. An annual increase of up to $23,000 reduces effective purchasing power by up to $330,000. Guys, that's not a rounding error. That is a structural shift in the market.
Section 4. The carrier carve-out.
Because, it's not just Los Angeles County feeling the heat here. In places like Napa County and Sonoma County, these non-renewals force homeowners into immediate, massive financial shocks, unless they can secure one of the very few remaining private options. Just imagine holding a Glen Ellen home. Your traveler's policy drops in mid-2025, and suddenly you're staring down a $9,800 FAIR Plan plus DIC quote against your previous $2,400 bill. Your options become incredibly limited.
Under the May 2026 state enforcement framework announced by the governor's office, there are exactly 9 specific carriers committed to remain and grow in California. We're talking Farmers, Mercury, CSAA, USAA, Horace Mann, Pacific Specialty, California Casualty, Travelers, and AAA SoCal. But here's the catch. To even qualify for some of these remaining private options, properties often have to meet really strict requirements, things like qualifying for the Safer from Wildfires home hardening discount.
Section 5. Capturing Reality with CMA Flow.
So how do we systematically account for this massive shift in transaction economics? By using this report, agents are able to clearly document the precise insurance assumption underlying the pricing activity. It acts as a totally transparent layer. The report asks the structured questions. Who's the current carrier? What's the most recent premium? Has the property been non-renewed? Does it qualify for the Safer from Wildfires credit? By putting this right into the commentary, you're showing the seller the exact financial reality the buyer's lender is going to use when calculating debt to income. As you process this massive structural shift in California real estate, you've really got to ask yourself, how will your current listings survive a lender's strict underwriting when a buyer's carrying cost suddenly jumps by $18,800 a year? The market has changed, the math has fundamentally changed, and the way we value these properties absolutely has to change with it. Thanks for joining me on this explainer, and I'll catch you on the next one.